Hey, what's happening, everybody? Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live from Fredericksburg, Texas. It is the 14th of January. We are now 14 days officially into this very interesting year, straight from the gate, straight from the jump. 2020. How is everyone? Let's see. See if we got anybody in the chat room right now. Well, there's me. I'm in the chat room. We'll just kind of let people show up, arrive, the juices coagulate here. I'm still doing a bit of a wake up call, a bit of a wake up here today for myself. I'll show you guys something. This is I discovered a bunch of these. I was starting to clear some things out, and I discovered a bunch of these. And these are this was the concert I did with Paul Horn. Oh, look who's coming. This was the concert that I did with Paul Horn back in 2005. Wow, long time ago. Long freaking time ago. 15 years ago, I did this show. There's my buddy Steven right there. Paul. We had these posters made. These were the posters that I used to advertise the show, and Paul signed a bunch of them. And we sold a few at the event, which was kind of cool. And a little piece of history right there. A little piece of history. Anyway, I got about 25 of these. Maybe I'll sell some of them. If you're a super hardcore Paul Horn fan and you want one of these, let me know. You pay for the postage. Shipping and handling. If you're into it. It's kind of a cool thing. So let's see who's in the chat room. There's JMP Love. There's Uncle Glenn. There's Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer. Judy, Lori. There's Natasha. We are starting to assemble. Jasper, you want up here, buddy? Come on. Jasper and Rosie went on a hunger strike. Come on. You're the man. Come on, let's go. Jump up here. Do your thing. Come on. He's trying to find a way up. Come on. You can do it. I know you can do it. I have faith in you. You going to come up this way? It's a long way to go. He's thinking, shit, man, I could have done this 5 years ago. Come on. Come on. You go right here. Right here. You can do it right there. You can do this thing. Come on. You want to come up here on me? Come on. Hold on a second. I'll help you out. Okay. You come up here now. It's easy. Right here. There we go. All right. Whoa. Yep. Look who's here. There he is. He was having a hard time getting up this morning. Jasper and Rosie went on a hunger strike because they stopped liking their food. First time they've ever. I have to say, I've been really blessed with two cats that are not very finicky. I can feed them as long as cat food. Rosie will eat just about anything. Jasper will eat just about anything too, but they decided turkey and giblets was not in their future anymore. And I try not to change up the cat food. I like to feed them like just one type, because for a long time I used to think that having all these different varieties of cat food, I used to buy like the sampler box or the mixer box. And like, oh, I'm sure they're going to really love, salmon and chicken today or whatever. And then they started to puke a lot. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's because I'm feeding them all these different foods and their stomach has to process it. There may be different enzymes involved in processing different types of meats or whatever. So I just said, screw it. I'm just going to feed them one flavor. They're fine with it, except for now with the turkey and giblets. Okay, let's see what else. What do we have? What do we have? What do we have? There's Christine. Hey, Christine, how are you? Good morning. We got 27 people watching. Yes, indeed. There's Steve. Hey, Steve, how's it going? Let's see. All right, why don't we start to roll a little bit? So we've come through the Saturn Pluto conjunction. I mean, still hanging around. The exactitude happened the other night. We were really humming on Sunday night on the Sunday night show. I was in a funny place. I was recounting my past, very kind of Cancerian effect in a lot of ways, going backwards in time. I was getting some dates mixed up. It was like my 30th birthday, not my 40th birthday. But that was a fun show. And the effects of the Saturn Pluto, what I practice is called mundane astrology. So you look at the world, look at events, and kind of find out where the astrological traction is. So the events that I've been able to track so far have been about some level of unveiling on the public scale, on the public, sort of in the public sphere. So we talked about how Facebook had the glitch, and it was revealed that Greta doesn't do her Facebook page, that her father runs her Facebook page, and her father posts everything. Now, is that going to change the world? No. Is it going to dissuade the supporters of Greta Thunberg? No, it's not, because they're loyal to the core. But we saw that. We also saw the article on Stephen Hadley, former uh, member of the Department of Defense, inside of the Bush White House. I think he might have even been the head of the Department of Defense. Anyway, Hadley wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post, basically promoting war. Turns out that he's on the board of directors of Raytheon and has a shitload of stock in Raytheon. Boy, talk about conflict of interest. I mean, this stuff went on for a very long time during the Gulf War, or the run up to the Gulf War. Of course, we talked about that as well, and how all these so-called experts would get on and basically, pump the war, prop up the war effort, hype it up, and they were working for these various think tanks and military industrial complex contractors, and it was just like conflict of interest all the way around. And we were very wet behind the ears in a lot of ways with this stuff. I was doing my best to use my scalpel, my surgical psychic scalpel during that time. But still, this was a very nascent period where people had not become like citizen journalists. So I'm gonna bring you a bit of citizen journalism today. It's kind of interesting, and it has to do with Soliemani and his red ring. I'm sure some of you who've been following this have seen this massive red ring on his hand. So I'm going to. I found a story today which you might find interesting that has to do with that red ring. But now, for another part of this so-called unveiling, we turn to the sport of Major League Baseball. And let me get this up here for you guys. So the Houston Astros have been a highly, highly successful baseball team over the past few years. And one of the reasons why they've been very successful is because they've had a very aggressive and, I guess, progressive relationship with what's called analytics. I don't want to get too deep into analytics, but it's basically using statistics that support certain types of players in certain parts of the game. And, it's a very kind of computer heavy way of playing baseball. And the baseball has become sort of the heartbeat of analytics in sports. It started with a guy by the name of Bill James, and Bill James started doing everything by numbers, and in a big way. People were already working with numbers prior to Bill James, but Bill James took it to a whole nother level. He became the godfather of sports analytics, and Now it's taken over. Analytics have taken over baseball. Um, and the reason why analytics is so popular in baseball is the fact that baseball is a sport you can isolate out from pitch to pitch, right? So you have a small sample size with every single play. So, for instance, I'm a batter, I have to take a pitch, or I have to have a pitch come to me. And what I do with that is actually um, it's actually tracked. So over time, my hitting tendencies are tracked, and all kinds of stuff are tracked. So therefore, with the computerized data, they're able to say, okay, well, he does this here, he does this here, and then let's move these players over here. And then what happens is that the manager on the team really doesn't kind of manage the team anymore. The computer and the computer tendencies manage the team. And that's becoming much more popular. So managers themselves are. Baseball is quickly becoming. What's interesting about baseball is that baseball is the first sport that really takes America by storm. If you look at some of the photographs of like the Chicago World's Fair, some of these World's Fair photographs, you'll see people kind of walking around with signs promoting baseball during that period of time. And baseball is a deeply Masonic sport. We're going to talk a little bit about Freemasonry today as well. Baseball is a deeply Masonic sport. If you look at the diamond, it is the compass in the square. So if you take the foul lines and go this way, you'll see it. As if it's the most unusual field. Even a rugby pitch is circular. It's not in that same compass and square kind of formation that American baseball is in. And then you look at the numbers of baseball, and they're all sacred numbers, sevens and nines and threes. The mound is 66. Is it 66.6? Let's see the mound. I think it's 66.6 feet from home plate, or 60.6. I have to, but it's in that sixth zone. So baseball itself is kind of a unique sport. And by the way, it's not just the managers and the players that are going to be subject to analytics. They're going to start to bring in robot umpires to call the strike zone. So the idea here is that there would be essentially an umpire at home plate to kind of watch over things and make calls at home plate. But a computer, a robot, will begin to make balls and strikes calls. So baseball, which is ironically the most agrarian of the sports, like if you look at the evolution of sports in the United States, it starts off with baseball, and it's connected to that kind of agrarian period in the U.S. From the late 1800s on. And of course, the most famous agrarian movie that represents that is Field of Dreams. Baseball. There's a field carved out in a cornfield. That is the agrarian metaphor for baseball. And then we get into football. And football, of course, represents the wars that America is going to go into: World War I and World War II and Korea. And as the wars continue to happen and take place, football begins to rise in popularity. Basketball is the post-war sport. And clearly we're still in a war, but it's not like the wars that we used to fight. And basketball represents the rise of urban culture. And so we go from baseball, which is agrarian, to football, which is based on the rise of the United States on the backs of these two major wars. And then we have the post-war sport, which is basketball. And probably maybe the next sport, which would be the global sport, would be soccer. And soccer's been around for a very long time. The English took it everywhere. So anyway, we're talking about the Houston Astros and what's happened over the past couple of days. So what happened, because the Astros were very deeply into analytics, there was a different kind, a form of shadow analytics called cheating, and the Astros have been busted. Now, I really thought, I had a prediction. I belong to the Austin Astrological Society. One of the predictions I made was that the Astros would lose their World Series title, and it would happen, fairly soon. Well, they didn't lose their World Series title, but they got as close as it can get. They had their general manager suspended for a year. They had their manager suspended for a year. They were fined $5 million. $5 million is a lot of money. $5 million going straight to Major League Baseball. And then for the next 2 seasons, this season coming and then the following season, they've lost their 2 first-round draft picks. So this is a heavy price to pay. And Jeff Luhnow was responsible for, in a lot of ways, for the rise in the Astros' success. Now, why am I talking about this? Let me bring this up here, because I think it's one of these things that's a part of a cultural convergence, not just cultural, but astrological cultural convergence, since we do talk about astrology quite a bit here. And it seems to be part of the course at this point in time. So fired Astros Jeff Luhnow takes a shot at Alex Cora. So I'm just giving you a visual of Jeff Luhnow because I think it was Justin brought this up over on the 11th House page on Facebook. By the way, I am still banned from Facebook. I didn't know this until a couple of days ago, because I went onto my computer and I was able to use Facebook and get into Facebook, like, I don't know, maybe a week ago, 10 days ago, but I can't use it from my phone. So I'm still banned from Facebook. It's called, I can't use Facebook Live. So I still have 12 more days on my phone suspension right here, right? But I can still access it. Anyway, Justin brought this up. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see if we can find the astrological hooks in this thing. Turns out Jeff Luhnow, born December 28th, which puts him right in the eclipse zone. Puts him right in the Saturn-Pluto eclipse on his sun. The solar eclipse that we had on the 25th, 26th. That was right on his sun, just roughly a degree and a half, 2 degrees off, 2 degrees off. I mean, that's a hit. And then he was born with the moon in Cancer. So then he got hit with the lunar eclipse. And then he also got hit to some degree the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And, see you later, alligator. This guy's no longer the general manager of the Houston Astros. So this guy was taken out by the 2 eclipses. I mean, obviously, part of his the whole thing that we have with this situation is that here's this guy Alex Cora, and he is now the manager of the Boston Red Sox. And 2 years ago, the Red Sox were phenomenal. I mean, they had one of the most phenomenal records of all time. It was incredible. And they rolled all the way through the World Series, and they won the World Series, right? And Jeff, he used to he was the bench coach for the Astros. Alex Cora was the guy who created the cheating system, which is, I guess, the poor man's version of analytics. So he's basically saying, Jeff Luhnow is saying that Alex Cora is the guy who did this cheating. And he really didn't know anything about it, which I find hard to believe. Now, A.J. Hinch, who was the manager of the team, also fired yesterday, says he didn't. Well, he's a little more obtuse. Let's see, what does Luhnow say? I accept responsibility for rules violations that occurred on my watch as president of baseball operations and general manager of the Houston Astros. Luhnow said in his statement, I apologize to the Astros organization, Astros fans, and the Houston community for the shame and embarrassment this caused. I'm deeply grateful to Jim Crane. Then he says, I am not a cheater. Anybody who has worked closely with me during my 32-year career inside and outside baseball can attest to my integrity. I did not know rules are being broken. As the commissioner set out in his statement, I did not personally direct, oversee, or engage in any kind of misconduct. The sign stealing initiative was not planned or directed by baseball management. The trash can banging was driven and executed by players. And the video decoding of signs originated and was executed by lower level employees working with the bench coach. I am deeply upset that I wasn't informed of any misconduct because I would have stopped it. And then Hinch says, I appreciate Commissioner Manfred's unwavering commitment to upholding the best interest of baseball. I regret being connected to these events. I am disappointed in our club's actions within this timeline, and I accept the commissioner's decision. As a leader and major league manager, it is my responsibility to lead players and staff with integrity that represents the game in the best possible way. While the evidence consistently showed I didn't endorse or participate in the sign stealing practices, I failed to stop them, and I'm deeply sorry. So he knew what was going on. He knew what was going on. And if he knew what was going on, Lunau would know what was going on, because this is a guy who's extremely thorough. He was raised in Mexico for quite a while. Went to prestigious private schools in Mexico. He speaks Spanish fluently, and that's been quite a help for him in terms of recruiting and dealing with very talented, highly talented Latin American players. And if he's a Capricorn, he knows where everything is. Like, Capricorns are some of the most organized and informed people that I run across. Now, they may not be informed about everything, but what they're doing and what they're involved in, trust me, they're informed. So I find it very hard to buy the Jeff Lunau. And even the name Lunau sounds like Luna, and it's interesting that the moon would be in Cancer in his chart. He would be the recipient of both eclipses. So what's going to happen to Alex Cora remains to be seen. But it's also this very interesting stigma now with the Northeast, with Cora, and you have Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, and that cheating. Cheating's a really interesting topic. It's a really, really interesting kind of, in some ways, a moral dilemma. Because in sports, there's this maxim, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. You know, I mean, so there's this idea that, and there are gradations of cheating. You know, there's gradations of cheating. Like, well, if I, so for instance, let's say you are playing in a game of basketball and something on the court happens and it's not that egregious, but the player who receives kind of a bump or some kind of contact all of a sudden flops on the floor like he's a dead fish. And the refs see it and they call a penalty, they call a foul. He may not have been hit that hard, but because of the flop, it engenders perceived sympathy. So a penalty is called. That's kind of a version of cheating in some ways. You know, it's like taking advantage of that moment and selling the moment so that it puts the other player at a disadvantage. This happens all the time in sports. All the time in sports. It's not uncommon. There are low levels of cheating, high levels of cheating in sports. Does it make it better? Does it make it better? Does it make sport? Does it? Depends. If you're betting money on games, no. I mean, so and then we get into the arena of life around cheating, and it's a very difficult, in some ways, very hard kind of moral dilemma, because we know that that the powers, quote unquote, that be, whoever they may be in any given situation, they're deeply involved in cheating. They cheat all the fucking time. You know, they're cheating on, like, for instance, if you go into what happened with Virginia and how Virginia lost the election. When I say lost the election, it means that the that the the right lost the majority in Virginia, which I thought they would never do. Well, it's because a guy who wasn't even living in Virginia, and he's a professor at a college in Southern California, essentially redistricted the entire state. He looked at, how he could slice and dice this thing up so that the districts would then conform to a majority of Democratic/progressive voters. He doesn't even live in Virginia. So is redistricting cheating? It's legal, but it's rigging something so that a result can be attained by the rigging of the event. It's one of those border. So we face these decisions all the time in our lives. And, so, well, so-and-so does it. Maybe, I could do that. And I think you play it out to this kind of extreme. If you don't cheat, which I think is probably the best solution, because you got to live with your conscience regardless, then you're probably going to wind up in a more disadvantageous state than other people who are in the similar state that are playing fast and loose with the rules. And this is how the game in the material world is stacked up. Now, you can, and I talked about this on Sunday night, you could have an output of work that is solid, that is consistent, that is scrupulous, meaning that you can look at it and say, okay, this is real, it resonates, it's honest. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. And I think the best and the most successful people adhere to that model. I would see people in my brief stint in the corporate world try to play corporate games, and I was never into that. I'm not a perfect person. I'm not. I mean, there are moments in my life where I've crossed lines. But there are times then at that time I was like, I'm just going to do the work. And that's always been a maxim of my life, even with this work. It's like I do my best to get up here every single day and be consistent with this. It's like, this is my yoga. This is my dharma in a lot of ways. So you got to keep it clean. So the idea around cheating is a really, really interesting one. They got the Houston Astros a World Series, 2 American League titles, and a shitload of money. And what happens from here on out will remain to be seen. And if people think that the Astros are the only team in baseball that are cheating, well, they're wrong. They're just patently wrong. There's different versions of it, right? So the other teams in baseball, what are they, 30, 32 teams, 31 teams? If you think your team is taking the moral high ground all the time, think again. Everybody's trying to gain an advantage. That's the way it is. Everybody's trying to gain an advantage, whether it's on the field or in life. And sometimes people cross lines in order to get that advantage. And like I told the story of the rat on Sunday night and how the rat jumped on the back of the ox. And when the rat jumped off the back of the ox and onto the Buddha's shoulder, the Buddha said the rat was the winner. Did the rat break any rules? Was he cheating? Was it based on the lay of the land and landscape? No, the rat found the loophole. Okay, he found the loophole. And is finding loopholes cheating? Technically, no. They're loopholes. They're things you can do. It's within the structure and the agreement of whatever that thing is. So they're important on some level. And I think that if we're, and I'm not advocating cheating, but I think if we're going to, move through this time, we have to have 2 parts of our being aligned. And one part has to do with integrity, and one part has to do with having a solid base and a solid foundation. The other part is you've got to be adept, and you've got to think on your feet. Is it cheating if you go down to, let's say, I don't know, Bed Bath and Beyond, and you're looking stuff up on your cell phone, and you're looking up their price on something, and you go to Amazon or somebody else because that air fryer Toaster oven is $20 less in another place. Is that cheating? Not really. You're finding a loophole, right? You're finding a loophole so you can no audio. Oh, here we go. Well, thank you. It's always fucking happens. I'm fucking sick of this. Pardon my language. Pissed. Okay, so we're back. I'm going to wear this though because I still like the look of it. So I'm bringing up something that is a little controversial, I think. But I think in order for us to be successful, we have to have a strong, fundamental, foundational base. I think it's really important. And we also have to be adept and be able to, there's a lot of mutability that's going to be happening this year. So mutability, adaptability, that's going to be part of what we're doing, to be light on your feet, light on your feet. And so the other day this is kind of another version of this. I went and took my truck down, my other truck, my project truck. I went down, took it down to get the water pump fixed. I didn't know it was a water pump at the time, but I found out later that it was a water pump. So then I asked the guy, I said, well, how much is it going to be? I'm asking him on the phone. He's like, oh, it's going to be $153 for that water pump. I'm like, oh, it's a lot of money. So I was on my computer, and what did I do? I went on and I looked at prices for the water pump. And I found a water pump for like $30. Now, who's cheating in that moment? Are they trying to cheat me? I mean, ostensibly, one could say, well, they're going to get this expensive water pump, and then maybe they get it from this parts store, and they get a discount, and so they're making money off of it. Or were they just lazy? Right. So in that moment, I said, okay, I'm going to look for this other water pump, and I found one for like $120 less, $115 less. So again, was that cheating on my part? Because I didn't just say, oh, okay, yeah, well, no, I'm going to find you another pump. This is the beauty of the internet. By the way, if you have any car repairs, and you get an estimate, you should always, before you say yes to the work, you should look at the estimate. All right, look at the estimate, see what's part of the estimate for parts, and then go online and see if you can find a cheaper part. And you can tell them, you get the part number and everything, because it will save you money. I mean, you can save a considerable amount of money if you understand the difference in price between various parts. Anyway, it's not really cheating, but it's about being mutable and adaptable and adaptable. Adaptable is my new word. Like an adept. Anyway, there's my morning meditation. There's a fine line there. There's a very fine line. Very, very fine line. You cross over the line, things can get philosophically, morally, and spiritually difficult. You can lose your job, like Jeff Luhnow. You get right up to that line, and you're still within your moral and ethical bounds. Then I think it's kind of that place. You're on the edge. You're on the edge, and it's one of those things that, in terms of business, that you want to be at that place where, you're not crossing over the line, but you're in an area where you're in the legal zone or the moral zone or the philosophical zone, but you're also able to stay open to different possibilities, so you're not just locked into the hypercube, right? Okay, so I'm going to shift gears here, and I ran across this story today, and you got to check this out. This is really interesting. Very, very interesting. So most of you have probably seen this. What did I get here? For some reason my computer's not powering up now. These cords are. Oh, here we go. That's the wrong cord. Okay, so some of you have seen, and I saw it too,
But I didn't really make this connection. But some of you have seen the red ring that is on Soliemani's hand. Have you guys seen that? So it's a very distinguished red stone. So I stumbled across this website today, and I don't know much about the website, but it's called thereaderapp.com, threadreaderapp.com. Okay. So we're just going to go through this a little bit. This is somebody by the name of Danielle Blumenthal, PhD, smart people working on things. So the thread here is, who else wears the ring? So this is from Mimi B. I guess this is kind of like next level sort of citizen journalism through these threads. So we have Soliemani here with the red ring, and look who else has the red ring. They're almost exact matches. Oprah. And we're going to go through a number of these pictures here. You know who these characters are. We got John Podesta. There's a very young Hillary Clinton, Tom Hanks. And that's, I believe, Sheila Jackson Lee. Let's go through some of these images. It's a very interesting match. Gee, coincidence? I wonder. Here's another one of these rings. That looks like it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. So Oprah Winfrey wearing the ring with the red oval stone, heavy stone, similar to Soliemani. There's the ring, right? It's almost a complete match. Very interesting. So here we have Tom Hanks. Looking very similar, right? So now we've got 3 matches. 2 matches is like, 3 matches is like, you kind of lean into the computer a little bit. Really? And then this is Rouhani. So this is the guy who is one of the leaders in Iran. Are you getting down now? You getting down? All right, we'll see you later. You're going to say goodbye to everybody? You'll say goodbye to your friends? Your loving and adoring friends? Yeah? Or are you just going to stay here? So Rouhani has the red stone too. Well, who else has it? Oh, well, there's Sheila Jackson Lee. This one is kind of interesting. It's a little bit different, but it's still kind of in that ballpark with this oval red stone, which I believe happens to be agate. But she's far from the only one. So we've got Podesta. Now he's got a kind of a flat version, not an oval version, but it's flat. Again, same color, almost same size, right? Boom. Somebody said fraternity rings. Okay, here you go. Let's take that RSS feed and throw you an ad. This is not part of the story, by the way. And then here's Hillary. What do we have here? Of course, it's black and white. And she's doing the kind of famous Merkel/Trump hand gesture here. Look at those glasses. Jeez. They're laser beam lenses. Here's a Schwarzenegger thing. She says, I'm not sure this one counts. Maybe not. Maybe it looks a little purple. But no paragon of virtue there. So then we have George W. Bush sporting an oversized championship ring as the stands with the midshipman Jeremy Chase. The hell is that? What is that? Is that like a World Series ring? Jeez. So Hanks and Oprah both with rings together in another photo. A lot of weird elements. Yeah, we've seen this photo before. This is the one, hamburger and the buns. It's like a cock and balls, right? Cock and balls. It's probably like is that a pizza pie over the top there too? hamburgers, hot dogs, pizza. Is that what you've got going on? So, and like he's not wearing the ring there. There's no ring there. It looks like Gail doesn't have a ring. But here we go. Again, there's that version of that ring. Boom, right there. You can see it's a smaller version. One of those stones represent like moving up in some kind of, rank or order fashion. And that the higher you get, the bigger the stone. And apparently Johnny Depp has a similar one. Might be a bit of a reach there, but considering the company he keeps, perhaps not. Very similar color. This one looks more maybe like a ruby, but agate is thought to be like the actual stone itself, and it's a means of providing protection. Warriors used to have agate engraved to their breastplate. The ring alone isn't enough. It is interesting to explore the path of thinking. This path of thinking, jewelry used as secret symbol. So Puffy's got a ring, but these are very different kinds of rings. And he does have the large stone here. I do not know who Cara Delevingne is, but apparently she's got an article about signet rings, the one eye signal, the one eye ring. The ring, sometimes they have actually the ring around the eye, like with the soul scalp and stuff. And of course, we have the red stone over and over again around the queen. Is it agate? Very similar, right? Very, very similar. This picture is the one that really got me. These guys are all wearing red shoes. They're all wearing red shoes. Red shoes, of course, representing blood, the blood that drips down on the feet of individuals during these very gruesome rituals that they're involved in. And Bill Maher wearing red shoes as well, Tony Podesta. So some very interesting stuff around the red ring. Now, this guy says it's a Freemason's ring. There are Freemasons in Iran, even his boys wear it, meaning that if you look at the photo, that the guys in his troop are wearing a very similar ring. Let's see if we can blow that up a little bit here. Go to the Twitter page. Let's see if we can make this bigger. Yeah, you can see the ring, very similar ring, right? Danielle Blumenthal. Serving God, Torah, Jew, wife, mom, patriot, opinions mine. How funny is that? Anyway, an interesting thread and related to the ring of Soliemani. The ring of Soliemani, the ring of Suleiman. What do you guys think? What are your thoughts on the ring? Is it symbolic? Is it connected? A lot of you peeps in Chatlandia have some interesting esoteric knowledge. What are your takes on the ring? Let's see, we get it here. Big time Freemason in Iran. You may represent blood sacrifice. Red shoes do. Yeah, we got into the red shoes piece for sure. It's a clue. Queen is dripping with rubies. Children's blood. The short crop blonde hair is associated with MK. Yes, that's true. Let's see. Death is the loophole. I like that. Death cheating life. Is death cheating life? Interesting. It's an interesting concept about life and death. Yeah, I brought up this this story about how by taking the worm pathway that people might be able to live to be 400 years old. You know, cheating death. How do you feel about dying? Do you want to? Are you okay with kind of an organic death? And say dying somewhere between the age of 75 and say 95. Are you okay with that? Are you good with that? Do you want to live longer than that? If so, why? Why would you want to live longer than that? Because I believe there are people that have not only lived longer than that, but I believe that there are people that have lived upwards of 200 to 300 years. And I'm not talking Methuselah, I'm talking about people that are currently walking amongst us. But there are people that have been around for a very long time, that they have figured something out, that they have touched into the philosopher's stone and have been able to continue their path. And my feeling on the matter is that I don't know if I'd want to live forever, but I wouldn't mind living. I'm being very honest. I wouldn't mind living to be about 150, but I'd have to have a certain version of 100. Like I'd have to be like this for the next 50 years, because I think when we get to a certain point, we're just starting to figure things out. And this is kind of the juicy and delicious paradox of life, where you get to a certain point, you start to figure things out. By that time, you're like looking at your watch. You're like, holy shit. Steve Young talked about this when he played football. He said that there was a point when you're really, really young when you play football and you're all just nerves and synapse and twitch. And there's a certain point after you play for a while, all of a sudden the game slows down. You get this convergence where your experience and your energy come together and you can really do a lot of good work in that period and phase. But then after that, the body begins to decline. You can still have the awareness, you can still have the presence of mind, but the performance drops off. And for Steve Young, it was concussions, which took him out of the game. I don't really have any interest in living forever, but I wouldn't, I feel like in a lot of ways, and I've been doing this work now for a long time. I've been doing the stream work and the YouTube stuff and working with clients for very intensely for the last 10 years. And it feels like in a lot of ways, I'm really just getting to the starting point with a lot of things. So I wouldn't mind an opportunity to kind of, try this model out for a while. At the end of the day, though, I'd rather not live to be extended. Like I saw my father get sick and become decrepit, and I want no part of that game. So if the silver cord is cut, let it be quick. Not now. I've got things to do. All right, what are your feelings about death, life, immortality, longevity? How are you guys feeling about it? Death is not what we are told, and yes, shortened our lifespan for our chances to achieve enlightenment. Yes. Let's see, Charlie did not feel that way at all. Just one man's testimony, anecdotal. You're never too old to create. Yeah, I'm not sure I have a handle on that yet. I want a long youth, not necessarily a long life. Would mind living much longer if my body could stay 20 and my mind be allowed to grow? Let's see, Mr. Mazak, I am still trying to figure that out. Anna says, life is redundant at the age of 62. What else to do? I'm assuming, Charles, that's your age. Yeah, I think there is that. Like you've done a lot. If you've lived a lot, if you've had a lot of experiences, how many more new experiences can you have? I think each and every one of us has an internal kind of clock that says, am I done yet? Have I done my work? Do I feel complete here? And I think that's probably the most important idea that people could wrap their heads around is, do you feel complete? If you don't feel complete, why? What would it take for you to feel complete, and how long? And that's a very kind of open-ended question. And Christine in the chat room brings something interesting up. If you look at a lot of the quote-unquote pre-flood biblical dates, biblical ages, Methuselah, etc., these characters were living to be 200 years old, 175. So there theoretically was a time where people did live longer. Now, of course, there were probably less people on the planet, so having longer lifespans was maybe part of the bio program at that time. But there's this theory that what happened was that this great flood, which you can see across all these various cultures, they all talk about it. that is this interesting kind of demarcation where you begin to see after that the lifespans begin to drop off. I mean, they're getting increasingly smaller through the Bible, or like what did Abraham live to be, like 144, and that was considered to be a young death based on that time scale. So theoretically, the children of Abraham lived lives that were not as not as long per se. So the idea is that the Earth was more oxygen rich, at a higher oxygen level, and with that higher oxygen level, people were super oxygenated. The anaerobic effect was taking place inside of their body. They could inflammation, disease, all the stuff that sort of got imported when Pandora theoretically opened her box. That probably coincided with this kind of degradation of oxygen. So yeah, that's my theory. That's my theory. I think people did live longer, but there were less people on the planet too, theoretically, which would help, right? So if you get more people on the planet, the amount of years attached to everybody could be a lot less, again, theoretically. By the way, I have my reservations that there are 7 billion people on the planet. I mean, really, who knows? Who knows how many people there are on the planet? Hold on a second. Okay, I have to go. I gotta go take that call. Kind of important. That's it for now. That is it for now. So, wish I had a nice transition kind of story out of here. I zoned out for a minute. So we're very deep. What else we have? Okay. We leave our body, we remember the people, places, things we're attached to, since we don't know where else to go. I've had a couple of dreams about death recently. I had one a few months ago, and it was disturbing. I had two, and they were both kind of disturbing. One was when I got decapitated. Speaking of alcohol, and in that dream, I remembered who I was after I died. I had another dream where I was shot multiple times, and as I continued my out-of-body experience, I remembered less and less of who I was, and so I was experiencing this kind of amnesic state in the fourth dimension, which was terrifying. I had to say that was probably one of the more terrifying dreams I've had. But the other one, I remembered who I was. So you have two versions of post-mortal reality. Oh, a lovely light topic to get into today. It is a Saturn-Pluto conjunction that does represent life and death and time. And Saturn-Pluto conjunction will still be around. It's not as exact. It's still going to be around. We're still dealing with the energies. And it can also be very vital. Remember, Capricorn does real time, longevity, lifespans, things like that. So it is a topic of conversation. And I'm sure we'll have continued versions of that as we move forward in 2020. And with that, do your best to not only live long, but live well. It is not always the quantity of your existence, but the quality of your existence. And remember to share that with the people in your life. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to 15 Minutes of Flame. I'll be back tomorrow. So use your head to discern what's real, and your heart to step on what's possible. In the meantime, take good care. And happy 2020. Bye for now.